I have today Dr. Roger Walsh with me, who's a psychiatrist from the University of California at Irvine. I want to read something to you in the beginning of his book that I came across. First time, Roger, I've ever seen a book dedicated this way. To all of those who hunger and are without food, to all of those who thirst and are without water, to all of those who lie sick and are without medicine, to all of those who go cold and are without clothing or shelter, to all of who yearn to understand and are without education, to all who are oppressed and yearn for freedom, to all those who out of ignorance and fear cause suffering, to all of those who suffer and are without help, and to all of you who would help. The psychology of human survival. It's beautiful, beautiful, I want to tell you. It really got to me. Having come up on all of this, you suggest very strongly in Staying Alive that the psychology of human survival, one of the bottom line, I gather you're suggesting, it has to do with change, that we must change. Something must happen to us. What are you suggesting at this point? What has to happen to us?
Well, I think it's really important for us to recognize that the state of the world is an expression of the state of our minds, of our ways of being, of acting, of behaving, of thinking. You see, we're at a new phase in human history. For the first time in human history, all the major threats to human survival and well-being are self-caused. We've created them ourselves. The great natural disasters of disease and plague are no longer the killers, at least in the West, that they used to be. The threats we're facing now are the ones we ourselves have made. And as such, they stem from our own behavior, our ways of thinking, our fears, our phobias, our defenses, our neuroses, all the distorted and mistaken and foolish ways we look at the world and the way we respond to it. So what that suggests is that if we're really going to be effective, if we're really going to cure these problems, we really have to take these psychological dimensions into account. We have to take ourselves into account. We have to change our own ways of thinking and acting if we're to have any effect on changing the world. Because the world is now really a mirror of ourselves, of our individual and collective ways of thinking and being.
Mm-hmm. Part of what we come up on, though, is that that so many schools of thought, so many notions, presuppositions, value systems enter into the whole spectrum of political and economic and social forces of this, what I gather that you're saying, this psychology of change. How do we sort of get at creating a more human response then in regards to what I think I hear you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are obviously a lot of things we have to do. It's really going to take a great deal if we're really going to change our lifestyle, change the way we live, change our world to be a more humane and better place for all the people on it. And it's going to take all sorts of approaches. You mentioned economic and social forces. Obviously, all those are going to have to be addressed. We're going to have to really look at our priorities and values. Everything is going to be up for grabs to look at, to re-examine. But if we're going to do that, then we have to get down to a very basic level, looking at ourselves, at what we really want, at what we want to do with our lives, at what we hope to do, of what's really important to us. It comes back, although, as you say, the global situation and the forces which are causing it are very complicated. Mm-hmm. In the end, it always comes back to us. Yeah. And if I or you are going to do anything to change, the first thing, we have to look to ourselves first.
Are we our major threat then?
I think we're both our major threat and our major hope. What else is there?
Yeah, right. I know that a number of you will want to get the title of this book again, because I'm sure you'll be very interested in seeking it out. Staying Alive, The Psychology of Human Survival by Dr. Roger Walsh. and I'm sure you'll want to pick this up. Roger, a lot of people say, but the problems are so big. There's really nothing I can do about them, you know. Let's talk a little more about specific things that people can do. What can people, just initially, what are some of the nitty-gritty initial things I can do?
Well, the first thing is simply to learn a little bit about the problems and what we're up against. And then the second thing is really to take a look at our own lives and see what the unique opportunities that each of us has. And it's not, you know, we often think that people like Gandhi, they just were geniuses and they just thought of these things automatically. But no, they really sat down, they thought very carefully. So that's the next thing that we need to do. People really need to sit down and look at, okay, what would I really like to do? What are my talents? What are my opportunities? What am I good at? What could I do? For example, Gandhi, before he began his march to the sea to collect the salt, he spent a month just sitting and reflecting on what he could best do. So perhaps the optimum thing for all of us to do is just spend some time looking at our own lives. What can I do? And then there are all the traditional things from letter writing
We've got about
to
15
speaking.
seconds, yeah.
Okay, lots of things. It's a challenge for each of us to find out what we can do best.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you again, by the way, and certainly good to have you on my show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Walk that walk and talk that talk, and be that be, and love that love, and struggle that struggle. We'll see you again soon.